everyone, welcome back to Behastic's channel. Today, we'll be talking about extremist education. So first, let's establish, what even is extremist education? Well, it's where politicians implement educational gag orders, laws that restrict the teaching of topics like race, gender, and American history to further their own political agenda. And when these laws go into effect, teachers are unable to teach certain parts of their curriculum, even if they're crucial for students to learn about. And in order to understand the extremist censorship that has been so prevalent in American society, let's examine extremist education by looking at its causes, harms, and finally, what policies we can implement to curb its consequences. First, let's look at what extremist education looks like and how it plays out in real life. Now, the main reason why extremist censorship even exists in education is because the truth is uncomfortable, and because that truth sometimes doesn't align with the political group's agenda. Now, for example, let's look at book banning. Currently, states across the United States, like Texas, Utah, and Mississippi, are banning books that are primarily written by minority authors, like people of color and or queer people, because they believe it follows a, quote, Marxist framework and is perpetuating, quote, wokeness. However, these are the books that highlight mental health issues, diversity, and the struggles of growing up queer or as a person of color. Books that are important in understanding the diversity in America and allowing students to find something they might relate with. The same goes for critical race theory. The idea that race is a social construct, meaning that not only is it caused by people's biases, but also something embedded in legal systems and policies. Now, while states like Tennessee and Idaho have banned the teaching of critical race theory, claiming that it reprimands all white people for being oppressors, the reality is that it does the opposite. It teaches students about the history of America's inherent institution of racism and how that affects society today, without blaming any groups in the status quo for past grievances. And by banning the teaching of events and ideas that are at the core of America's identity, we drastically limit the ability for students to relate to and understand the cultures of a very diverse America. Only by presenting a well-rounded education can students truly comprehend the extent to which topics like critical race theory, like gender identity, impact their daily lives. Now that we've looked at how extremist censorship plays out in real life, let's examine its harms. Now, the first harm, extremist censorship in education is increasing political pressure on teachers, creating faulty learning environments. Teacher turnover rates are at the highest they've been in at least 5 years. Many are worried about the political spotlight and pressure put on them by the growing crusade against topics like critical race theory. And they're right to be worried. A 2022 study by UCLA found that the culture wars from censorship have taken an immense toll on many schools, leading to increased rates of hostility and harassment amongst teens and adults alike. And there was particular hostility towards teachers. In fact, the rate of principals reporting multiple instances of a parent or community member challenging a teacher's information or media source nearly tripled in 4 years. The result? Teachers who are afraid of having important conversations about race, identity, and current events with their students. Kimberly Biondi, who taught high school English for 21 years in North Carolina, quit her job, worried that politics would stifle honest discussion. And that creates the second harm, systemic discrimination. By censoring the truth about issues like racism, we don't teach about its roots. And ignorance breeds violence. Look at anti-Semitic sentiment. A 2018 survey by Claims Conference, a group that negotiates restitution for Holocaust survivors, found that 22% of millennials had not even heard of the Holocaust. Recollection of this injustice is slipping from our curriculums. As a result, anti-Semitic incidents have risen. A study by the Anti-Defamation League found that the number of these hate incidents quadrupled in K-12 schools in just 2 years. But what can we do to solve this? How can we encourage more productive and objective curriculum in schools? Well, for one, we can advocate for mandated enrollment in a civics course. The civics curriculum can model programs like the legislative semester course, an extensive political simulation that requires students to research, debate, and mock vote on controversial public issues, furthering political engagement and open-mindedness when discussing where issues lie on the political spectrum. Second, we can ban state governments from enacting educational gag orders without direct approval from the Department of Education. Educational censorship should not be dictated state by state. It should be a federal issue so we can achieve unanimity over what information should be restricted in curriculum. By prohibiting statewide educational gag orders, we can effectively enact legislation to prevent the politicized censorship of topics like race, gender, and American history. Now, you may be asking, what can I do? Well, one of the easiest things you can do to protect yourself against extremist education is to read laterally. Now, this basically means that while looking at any media, you also open a new tab, researching about that media source while also looking at what other sites have to say about the same issue. For example, if you're reading a Fox News article about abortion, you should also research about any political biases, for example, Fox News may have. It leans right, and thus find another news source that leans either to the middle or slightly left to see what they have to say about abortion. This way, you can get a firmer grasp on the whole issue instead of looking at just one side of the story. So, now that we've examined extremist education, I hope you've not only gained a deeper understanding of it, but also discovered some of the ways you can help protect yourself and the people around you from it. Thank you for listening.